The legend of the legendary heroes begins with a narrative. A long time ago, the world was almost destroyed by the attack of a powerful being called the Demon Lord. Then came the warrior called the legendary hero. They appear to save the world to return to peace as it used to be. At that time, humans became strong creatures because they had magic and looked for the legacy of the heroes. Then there is a man named Ryner who has the rare power of Alpha Stigma eyes. This power can absorb and use the power of the opponent it faces. He was at the border between the Roland Kingdom and the Nelfa Kingdom. The border guards of the Nelfa Kingdom were surprised to see Ryner's Alpha Stigma power. They even called him a monster. The troop leader asked his troops to stop using magic, because he will absorb the energy and return it to them. The Nelfa royal army considered Ryner a spy from the Roland Kingdom. They asked Ryner not to come forward because it was a sign that there would be a fight between the two kingdoms. Suddenly came a woman named Ferris, who was Ryner's partner, but she instead mocked him because he ridiculously looks like a spy. According to her, his face was not suitable for being a spy. Then with her beauty, Ferris asked for a peaceful path so that they could cross this border. However, the troops immediately attacked them, so she had no choice but to fight back. Then they fought, which was finally won by her. Seeing her prowess, they all finally fled from the border. Even though Ryner's goal in meeting the troops was to ask where the heroes' treasures were in the Nelfa Kingdom. However, Ferris immediately hits Ryner because it was a secret mission, so she doesn't want to tell anyone else. Finally, they continued their journey. On the other hand, it turned out that there was a group that was monitoring Ryner and Ferris' movements. While they were resting, even Ferris, who was eating donghua, didn't want to be disturbed by him. Even though she looks fierce, she is just a guard assigned to accompany Ryner in completing his mission to find the treasures of heroes in the Nelfa Kingdom. The mission was ordered by a hero king named Sion Ostal, who brought a revolution of change. For some, he was considered a good man, wise and handsome, but to Ryner and Ferris, he was a demon. Ferris said Sion had tricked her by giving her donghos food, but in return, she had to accompany Ryner's mission. According to Ryner, Sion was a workaholic and even ordered him to undertake this strange mission. Then both of them shook hands because they felt they were in the same position. On the other side of the Roland Kingdom, Sion is walking around the city. The residents also seemed to cheer happily to welcome him because thanks to him, the lives of the residents became prosperous. They cheered and called him the Hero King. From behind the walls of a building, there appears to be a mysterious man named Miron who is watching them. The great door was opened when Sion arrived in his kingdom. Then two people greeted him named Kalne and Miller. They asked how the situation in the Selioa region was. Sion also asked Kalne to revise the budget immediately because she was in charge of domestic affairs. Then Sion asked Miller about military affairs and how were things in the frontier region. He asked Duke Steerlead and Count Clausber to make a big move. Then he asked Claff about the affairs of state security and how was the state of his neighboring kingdom. Miller gave him a report that Ryner and Ferris were currently in the ruins of the border treasure of the Nelfa Kingdom, but he was silent because he worried about them. On the other hand, Ryner and Ferris managed to find a large door locked with a magic spell. Ryner said that the door was difficult to open, but Ferris could easily open it with her sword. Meanwhile, the mysterious group was still following them and peeked out from behind the tree and followed them into the building. When Ferris and Ryner were inside the building, Ryner used his powers to see the situation inside. He said that in the building, there were many traps, but one of the mysterious people accidentally activated the trap mode, so he was almost impaled by the iron that appeared from the left and right walls. Then one of the women from the group seemed to care about Ryner and came to him to help. But suddenly, there was another trap in the form of strong water flow. Ferris escaped by holding onto the spear stuck in the wall while Ryner was swept away by the flow. The woman immediately helped Ryner. Then they got acquainted. Her name was Captain Milk Kalad, and she served as the Roland Kingdom trespassing squad leader. She wanted to catch him for using magic in the border region. But Ryner and Ferris ignored Captain Milk and left her. Instantly she got angry and attacked them with her magic. Ryner also easily withstands attacks from her. Then a light flew towards the top of the wall and turned into a monster shaped like a Gundam robot. Ferris and Ryner immediately fought the monster, but it was too strong. They both chose to run and hide until they realized that the monster was a relic of the hero. Then from behind the wall, there was a man named Violet. He is looking for the noble who had kidnapped his younger sister named Eslina. But instead, he attacked the king of Sion. Claff, who saw the incident, immediately attacked Violet back. When he falls due to an attack from Claff, he demands that he wants to be killed, because he can't live without his sister. Sion, who heard this, encouraged Violet and said he would help him. They went to the Clausber nobility, and Eslina was finally found. He wanted to help Violet because he didn't like nobles. In the past, the nobles dominated and often oppressed the weak, including himself. Sion tells his painful childhood. At that time, he was bullied by a group of noble children by beating him. Since childhood, he only lived with his mother, but because his mother suffered from an illness, she finally died. Since then, he was finally taken to the Special Military Academy of Roland Nobility, where this school invited orphans and children of high-profile criminals to join the war. They were trained to be the military front guard of the Roland Kingdom. Then after Seon grew up, he had many academic achievements, so he was appointed as the leader of the troop group. He received a report that there was a magical student named Ryner who had the Alpha Stigma ability. He then was also interested in recruiting Ryner into his army. The following day, while Seon was doing academy training on the field, he saw Ryner using his strength. But at that time, Ryner got bullied by other students because he was considered the most useless and weak student. Even against a woman, he lost. Ryner only has one female friend named Kiefer. She forced him to always train to become strong. After Ryner and Kiefer finished practicing, suddenly, Seon came over to them, who were still in the middle of the field. Seon invites Kiefer to join his team, and Ryner also forces her to accept the offer. Then Seon invites Ryner to join, but he refuses and prefers to relax instead of having to fight on the battlefield with Seon's team. He immediately uncovered Ryner's past and said that he knew that Ryner had the power of Alpha Stigma. He threatens to reveal this to everyone to force Ryner to join his team. Their first mission begins. Seon led them to Gorilla to capture the enemy, then he devised a strategy by setting a trap. Finally, their mission was successful. After that, they went to a drinking place. They seemed to be familiar now. Seon tells Ryner that he hates the academy system because it looks noble just because it took care of the orphans. But actually, they will all be sold and made as war slaves to look after the noble people. That means the orphans were actually used as victims of war, which was why Seon hated that academy system. Seon invites Ryner to take revenge, destroy the kingdom, and end this war era. He planned to become a king to pacify the land and provide protection for the common people without any distinction of status or oppression. Ryner also agreed as long as the country could be peaceful and allowed him to take a comfortable nap without being disturbed. Suddenly there is a group of black-robed magicians who attack them. Seon knew they were after him, so he told Ryner to leave. He is unfortunately stuck at a dead end when he tries to escape from them. When he thought that he would die there, Ferris appeared to help him. Ferris said that she got a duty from her brother to protect her territory from criminal acts. She easily slaughtered the group of magicians even though some managed to escape. Then she said that her help was not free. Seon had to pay using donghua, which was delivered to her house. The next day, when Seon delivered the food to Ferris's house, he was surprised that Ferris was a respectable Sword Clan family member, but she wanted to help him. When they met, she explained that her older brother asked her to look after Seon even though she didn't know why. She also felt curious why so many people were after him. Seon also said his mother was a commoner while his father was a famous nobleman. But since childhood, his father did not consider his existence and was expelled from the kingdom because he felt ashamed to have a son from a commoner. Ferris also said she would keep Seon for a while because it was her duty. She also told Ryner that starting tomorrow, she would invite her younger sister, Irish, to come with her. Seon was asked to prepare a double portion of donghua. The next day at the military headquarters, there was a notification about the war, where the Istanbul kingdom attacked their kingdom. Roland's royal soldiers told them to prepare for war on the front lines. Kiefer was afraid of losing Ryner because he was considered weak. She invites Ryner to run away from the academy to avoid participating in the war. On the other hand, Ferris and Irish were making their move. They asked Noble Brofs if he ordered to arrest Seon. When he refused to answer, Irish would douse him with hot water and pierce his feet with a nail to get him to talk. Then he admitted that he was after Seon. He said that about 50 magic knights of Istanbul were sent to the plains of Roxanne to trap Seon. There were even spies among Seon's friends. It's because Seon has the blood of an heir to be king. Then came Ferris's brother, who immediately slashed the neck of Noble Brofs. At that time, her brother explained that Seon was the real heir of the Roland kingdom. Elsewhere, Seon and company were already on the battlefield preparing their supplies. They were already at the border area of Istanbul and were setting up their tents. Then there was a student named Tail who was looking for water supplies. Meanwhile, still feeling restless, Kiefer asked Ryner to run away again. There she also expressed her feelings that she loved him. When he just thought it was a joke, she got angry, used her magic, and left. While Ryner was standing, suddenly, Tail's body was cut in half and appeared as if someone had thrown it. It turned out to be the work of the Istanbul Knight's magic. All of Ryner's friends were brutally slaughtered one by one. Seon, who knows this, tells them to run immediately while he and Ryner save the remaining team, including Kiefer. Then Ryner attacks with Alpha Stigma moves. When Seon was attacked by the enemy, Ryner swiftly blocked it with his strength. Then Seon felt angry and asked why he didn't use his power from the start. But while they were arguing, the leader of the Knights of the Astable Kingdom appeared and surrounded them. When they saw that Ryner had the Alpha Stigma ability, they put off the mission to kill Sion, because they are curious about the ability of Alpha Stigma, which is called the cursed power of a monster as strong as a god. But apparently, Kiefer still survived. She and Sion are currently being held captive by their troops. The Knight leader provoked Ryner to bring out his Alpha Stigma power. They immediately tortured Sion and wanted to rape Kiefer in front of him. Finally, Ryner managed to get angry and took out his ability and slaughtered the entire army of Knights of Astable alone. He who was out of control even wanted to kill Sion and Kiefer too. Sion, with all his might, brought Ryner's consciousness back. He also managed to stop Ryner by closing his eyes. It wasn't long before Roland's soldiers arrived. After that, Sion was warmly welcomed as a war hero even though the nobles didn't seem to like it. But Ryner and Kiefer are in prison instead. In that prison, Ryner was tortured because he knew that the Roland nobles were involved in Sion's murder. In addition, he is also considered to have foiled their assassination plan, because Ryner knew that Sion was the heir to the Roland kingdom, while Kiefer was used by the nobles as a puppet to trap Sion. This means that the hidden spy among Sion's friends is Kiefer. As a result, Ryner was sentenced to 2 years in prison and executed afterward. But the royal officials informed that the king gave one last wish to Ryner before being executed. He also asked them to free Kiefer. Then she regretted her actions of betraying everyone. Because of that, she caused all other students to die in the border area. Even so, she truly loves him. The next day Sion visits Ryner and gives him a tool to escape prison. But Ryner was happy in prison because he didn't have to fight and could take long naps. They are both currently living their own lives but still dreaming of the same thing, namely a world without war. Sion also continued to dream. Fortunately, fate supported him. Then he came to the house of the heiress family and met Ferris' older brother, Lucille. He was an important figure in establishing the kingdom. It was Sion's encounter with Lucille that changed his life. While Ryner's life in prison wasn't too bad, he still writes his dream of a peaceful world without war by collecting hero weapons from various parts of the world in a book. Long story short, 2 years passed, and it was time for Ryner to be executed. Accidentally, the person who picked him up was Ferris. At that time, they did not know each other. Ryner then tried to run away by attacking her with Izuchi's power, but she was strong enough to fight him. So, they both fight each other and attack each other. Unfortunately, Ferris used a sword knight technique, so Ryner couldn't absorb magic power. This makes him lose, and he surrenders to be executed. But Ryner felt confused because he should be executed, but Ferris took him to the king's palace. When they arrived at the palace, he was shocked and confused when he saw that Sion was now on the throne of King Roland. Ryner didn't care because he only wanted to sleep and relax. Then Sion gave the news that Kiefer wasn't dead and she was safe. He also said that he had read books written by Ryner while in prison. He was intrigued by the book and gave Ryner a mission to realize the writings on the book with Ferris. Then Sion finished telling Claff his past. On the other hand, Ryner and Ferris still had to search for the treasures of the heroes ordered by Sion. Then they arrived at Nelpha City, but he took a nap in the middle of the road. He asked Ferris to find an inn because he wanted to rest and sleep, but she refused because she was afraid to be alone in the room with him. The two went to a Nelpha royal library to look for clues about the hero's legacy. But just as they were about to enter, Ryner heard a slight commotion. He immediately went to the origin of the fuss and helped those who were being harassed by a thug. The man named Toll also thanked Ryner for helping him. Luckily, Toll was often in the library, so he could ask him about the library. The lazy Ryner also asked Toll to help him get the book, but the librarian's grandfather was angry because Toll was the grandson of Greed Nelfi, who was the king of the Nelpha kingdom. The indifferent Ryner didn't even pay attention to the old man's words and still told Toll to get the book. Seeing this, the librarian's grandfather was even angrier, but Toll said it didn't matter as this was his thanks to Ryner for helping him earlier. It was explained that Toll was a grandson of the king, but his mother was only a commoner, so he was wasted. Then he chose to live a simple life. According to the old man, Toll was more suited to be a king than King Starnal or Toll's father. Ryner looked at him and said his life story was the same as Sion's. On the other hand, Sion is so busy taking care of his kingdom that he doesn't think about himself and doesn't have time to eat. Luckily, Violet was always watching him because he had been appointed as the king's assistant. Violet was also very grateful to have a kind king like Sion, because if he hadn't met Sion, maybe he would have committed suicide, and his sister was still in the hands of that evil noble. When he was still a lowly citizen, Violet complained as if he didn't deserve to be happy. Sion, who heard this, immediately denied it because the happiness of a human being should not be seen from a status. He was even more proud of Sion, a king without discrimination against the common people. Violet reports that tonight there is a dance party scheduled. Then Sion gave him a day off so he could meet Islena. In the evening, Zion appeared to be attending a ball in the reception hall. He looked worried and did not enjoy the dance party, because there are many anti-supporting factions that he hates. They came to him, who was standing alone, but suddenly, Claff came to report to him that Violet was found to have been killed. The nobles who heard that didn't seem to care because the only one who died was Violet, a commoner. So it wasn't important to investigate his death. Sion, who heard this, held back his anger and did not want to rashly retaliate against their insults. Sion immediately came to the place where Violet died. When he saw Violet's body, he was very sad and blamed himself for that incident by beating the wall until his hand was injured. Claff immediately stopped him. Then there, he found a letter written by Violet to Islena. The contents of the letter said that Violet was very grateful for having such a good king. In that palace, he was treated fairly and equally with everyone. He also wrote that Sion was a wise king. Afterward, Sion orders Claff to ensure Islena's safety before the nobles find her. While Sion was walking, Lucille appeared, who offered to cooperate in slaughtering the nobles, but he refused because he thought it was not the right time. On the other hand, Ferris and Ryner were at Toll's house having dinner with some small children. Suddenly Irish came to meet them. She said that her arrival was the order from Sion as a communication link between them on this mission. Sion received a report from the nobles regarding their proposal in the kingdom. They wanted to visit their neighboring kingdom, Alpha Kingdom, as an introduction to the new king. Sion accepted the proposal for his consideration. After they left, Claff advised Sion not to come to the event, because according to him, the event could be a trap for the anti-kingdom faction, because they dared to attack a king if the king was outside his territory. When Sion and Claff entered Sion's room, suddenly in the room someone was waiting for him, the man named Miran. He introduced himself that he was the son of a noble named Marquis Carlo Froyud. He currently serves as a lieutenant colonel in the Roland Kingdom's military. He apologized if his arrival was rude, for he wanted to speak privately with Sion. Miran suggested that Sion attack other kingdoms so that the Roland Kingdom's power could widen. But he said that he wanted a kingdom without war, so the proposal was rejected by him. Miran was still trying to force Sion gently and said that a king must be able to be in a position of glory and a position of darkness. Then he asked Sion to make him his assistant. Miran also said that if Sion needed war one day, he would gladly pledge allegiance to defend the Roland Kingdom. Although this is contrary to Sion's dream, he realizes that there is always a dark side that needs to be sacrificed while making a decision. He then accepts Miran as his assistant. The next day, Irish reported to Sion that Ryner and Ferris had met and became acquainted with Toll, the grandson of the king of Nelfa. They are currently living at Toll's house. After that, Sion held a meeting with several royal people, including Miran, to discuss the proposal he received. He asks for opinions regarding his visit to the Nelfa kingdom. Claff disagreed with the visit, for he thought that Sion could have been killed there and it would all be over. He was very worried about the king's safety, and it could be just a trap from the nobles. Miran also shares his opinion from a military point of view. According to him, it would be very dangerous if Sion left his kingdom, but that event was one of the ways they could see the enemies of the kingdom, including the anti-king faction groups. At that place, Sion could also trap them all. Then there was an argument between Miran and Claff, because Claff still doesn't agree if Sion has to leave the kingdom, but Miran confidently said that as a lieutenant colonel, he would ensure the safety of the king's life if he was allowed to accompany Sion to the Nelfa kingdom. They all disagree because Miran is a new person, so they can't trust him yet. Claff said even Miran could have killed Sion there, so he wanted to accompany Sion if he wanted to make a visit to the Nelfa kingdom. Unexpectedly, Sion decided that all of them could not come. He will only go alone with Miran to the Nelfa kingdom. Long story short, Sion and Miran went to the Nelfa kingdom together. Arriving there, they were greeted by Greed Nelfi, the king of Nelfa. After that, Sion offered to the king of Nelfa to become an ally of the Roland kingdom. At first, the king of Nelfa agreed but came a man who broke the statement. He was King Starno, Toll's father. He seemed to underestimate Sion because of his young age. King Nelfa immediately apologized to Sion for his disrespectful treatment of him, and he said he would still hold a welcoming ceremony for Sion tonight. After that, Miran conducts an investigation. He gets information from his subordinates that the nobles and Starnel are making evil plans. He was asked to remain vigilant and conduct a thorough investigation with his subordinates. Meanwhile, Sion told Miran he would meet someone in Nelfa's territory. Sion visits Toll's house to meet Ryner and Ferris. He met them secretly and faked his identity. Due to Ryner's recklessness, he nearly exposed Sion's identity to Toll. Sion said he came there to ask for their help during his welcoming ceremony tonight at the Nelfa kingdom because many people wanted to kill him. When the night came, it turned out that many people were after Sion. Luckily, Ferris and Ryner were already on standby to carry out surveillance from afar. While Miran has traced, the mastermind of all these plans is King Starnal, because the king of Nelpha prefers Toll, who will inherit the throne of his kingdom, not Starnal. Knowing this, Sion ordered Miran to slaughter all the nobles and royal descendants involved in it. Then Miran immediately went and easily slaughtered the nobles. At that time, he also wanted to finish off Toll, but there he turned out to meet Ferris and Ryner. He thought that Ryner was Toll. They don't know each other, so they think they are enemies, even though they are from the same kingdom. Miran used his strength to attack Ryner, but with her strength, Ferris managed to block his attack with her sword. But Ryner's Alpha Stigma power couldn't detect Miran's magic. When Ryner unleashed his power, Miran was surprised to see he could use the power of various kingdoms. Ferris' strength also cannot be underestimated. Miran, who saw that his opponent was strong, immediately took out all his strength, causing Ferris to get seriously injured. When he turns himself into a monster, Ryner finds out that he has rare magic that comes from a ring in the form of shadow magic. But strangely, Ferris and Ryner had an argument even though they were fighting. Finally, Miran cancelled his intention to kill Toll. On the other hand, Claff was reporting Sion about his investigation of Miran. He said he could not get any information about Miran before he was adopted by Duke Froyud. He also protested Miran's attitude, who had massacred the nobles and was considered excessive, though he did not know that it was Sion who sent Miran. Suddenly Miran came to Sion's room while Claff was still there. Claff immediately left because he didn't seem to like him. Then Miran reported to Sion that he met two people that were strong enough when he wanted to kill Toll. Sion also knew the people Miran was referring to were Ferris and Ryner, but he didn't tell him. He still appreciates Miran's services. He also said that he was ready to carry out any orders from Sion. Then because of that, it makes Sion think about the real reason behind Miran wants to serve him. After that, Sion also felt regret after massacring the nobles of Nelpha. Even he accidentally made Miran fight with Ferris and Ryner. This means that he almost got Ferris and Ryner killed, but fortunately, Ferris only suffered injuries but is now improving because she has received treatment from Ryner. On the other hand, Ferris and Ryner were strolling in the Nelpha territory. Ferris felt that Ryner was a good person, so she was no longer fierce to him. They also continue the mission to find the treasures of the heroes. Then Ryner and Ferris headed for the fortress of the Nelpha kingdom. They easily slaughtered the guard troops in search of the heroes' treasures that matched the clues from the map. Unfortunately, they did not find anything. There were only files and two people they considered unimportant. When Ryner looked at the map again, it turned out that they were the wrong cardinals. The point they were looking for was not in the fort but in the area around the forest. Then Ferris realized someone was eavesdropping on their conversation. It turned out that they were a pair of sisters and brothers referred to as the Sui siblings. They confess that they are just thugs collecting used goods to resell and will be used for additional wedding expenses. Ryner and Ferris just stared at them and didn't suspect them. Even when the Sui siblings were going to check the historical items there, they let them. On the other hand, Captain Milk is still looking for Ryner's whereabouts. At that time, she was reminiscing about her dark past in the era of oppression by nobles. Everyone she loved had been killed, so she had to live alone in an orphanage. She could not help but have to be a slave to the kingdom. Then she decided to end her life because she could not stand her suffering. At that time, little Ryner appeared, who saved her and gave her the spirit to continue fighting for life. That was the reason Captain Milk was after him now. After that, the Sui siblings came to Captain Milk's room. They reported that two suspicious people had attacked her fort. She realized the two of them must be Ryner and Ferris. Then Captain Milk and her group immediately devised a plan to capture Ryner. Her goal is to keep Ryner away from Ferris, who is cruel to him. Then she will replace Ferris and get to know Ryner because she loves him. But they easily fought the ambush of Captain Milk and her group. When Captain Milk is tied up in a tree, she yells at Ryner that she is the woman he helped when he was at the orphanage. But he didn't remember or know her, so they both continued on their way and left her. After a long walk, Ryner dug the ground to find the hero's treasure. While digging a hole, he was confused as to why he was being chased by a team of royal trespassers and why Sion had allowed it. Ferris also explains that her mission is secret so that other people, including Captain Milk, don't know about it. After Ryner dug deeper, he found a sword left by the hero. But when he checked the sword with his Alpha Stigma, he didn't know what power was in the sword. Not long after, the Nelpha territory guard troops appeared where Ryner was. Captain Milk, who saw the patrol troops coming, immediately shouted to divert the troops. As a result, the patrol troops immediately came toward her. Luckily, Ryner and Ferris came to rescue Captain Milk's group. Due to many troops, Ferris ordered Ryner to use the hero's sword against them. But unfortunately, he couldn't use the power of the sword. He accidentally stabbed the sword into the ground. Then suddenly, the sword reacted, it turned into a huge dragon monster and killed all the opposing troops. Ferris and Ryner, who knew the dragon monster was strong, left the dragon. Even though it was a sword left by a hero, sometimes their behavior was ridiculous and unreasonable. On the other hand, Sion is still mourning Violet's death. He visits Violet's grave and promises to exterminate the nobles. He comes there with the admirals and Aislena. Seeing her brother's grave, Aislena immediately burst into tears. Seeing this, Sion thought that he had failed to become king, but she firmly said that this was all fate. From then on, Aislena volunteered to serve Sion to replace Violet. Then they left the cemetery. Then Miran came there to inform him that the nobles of Istanbul, who were vassals of the kingdom in the east, were doing a rebellion. He also ordered Miran to gather the nobles of Istanbul and the officials of the neighboring kingdoms in the palace. After they had gathered at Roland's palace, Sion asked for advice on overcoming the rebellion in his realm. One of the other royal officials said the rebellion was caused by his lack of firm leadership. Miran also defended Sion and volunteered to guard each region and suppress the rebellion. But he refused, and he preferred Claf to overcome this. Miran did not accept his decision. He also asked why Sion chose Claf. Sion knew that Miran had orchestrated all of this and sparked a rebellion among the interested parties. Wisely, he asked Miran not to interfere in the matter of this rebellion. At the same time, at the forefront of the nobles of Istanbul, there was a queen who would lead the rebellion named Nao. Actually, she did not agree with this rebellion because many people could have died because they were fighting the Roland kingdom. However, a female assistant named Saul convinces Queen Nao to continue the rebellion so that their kingdom is free from the shackles of the Roland kingdom. She followed Saul's advice and announced that their kingdom would fight with the Roland kingdom. Long story short, the war will begin. The two kingdoms sent their troops to each other's borders. The Roland kingdom is led by Admiral Claf. They all end up attacking each other. With the help of more troops, the Roland kingdom finally managed to defeat all of Istanbul's troops. Then after Claf read a letter from the Istanbul commander, he suddenly looked very angry. The letter said that if the Roland kingdom fought back again, they would kill their prisoners in Istanbul. But Queen Nao didn't know that there were prisoners from the Roland kingdom in her palace because it was Saul's doing. Finally, she realized that her power was only being used by Saul. Suddenly an attack came on the palace of Queen Nao. The prisoners were disappointed because Claf didn't think about their lives, but it turns out that the one who came was Miran. Miran brutally slaughtered the entire army of Istanbul even though he was not ordered by Sion. Here it is finally revealed that it was Saul who planned this rebellion. She deliberately ruled under the name of Queen Nao. After the rebellion broke out, she would kill Queen Nao so that she could become a leader in Istanbul. Unfortunately, when Saul was about to kill Queen Nao, Miran came and killed her. Even though the mastermind behind all this is Miran, Saul is just his puppet to seize power in Istanbul. Then he wanted to kill Queen Nao so that this rebellion would end. Then Claf suddenly came and stopped Miran, causing an argument between them. Queen Nao immediately stopped their fight and promised on behalf of the Queen of Istanbul that she would order her people not to rebel and obey the Roland kingdom. Finally, they agreed, and the war was over. On the other hand, Sion, who was in the palace, was worried about the war that was going on. He felt guilty for the loss of life in the Istanbul kingdom and the Roland kingdom. Then he blames Miran because the war would not have occurred if there had been no rebellion. Soon Irish came to report that Ferris and Ryner had obtained the hero's treasure in the form of a sword. Then Miller reported that a large dragon monster appeared in the Nelfa border area, causing many casualties. Hearing the report, Sion immediately ordered Irish to deliver a letter to Ferris and Ryner. With Irish's strength, she could fastly meet Ferris and deliver the letter from Sion. But upon arrival, Irish was asked to rest by Ferris because she knew that Irish had brought her favorite dongo, and she wanted to eat it alone. While looking for Dongo's box, she accidentally threw the letter in the trash. When Irish woke up, she immediately looked for a letter from Sion in her bag, but it was lost. Ryner also asked what the letter contained, but she forgot and only remembered that a dragon was raging. Ferris and Ryner guessed that the dragon in the letter was the monster they met yesterday. They were forced to finally return to the forest to fight the dragon. But actually, the letter's contents were orders to retreat and not to continue searching for the hero's treasure. Because dragons were very dangerous, Sion didn't want them to be killed because of this mission, but they misunderstood the order because of Ferris' carelessness. Arriving in the forest, they were surprised because many corpses were scattered everywhere. They also met the Sui siblings, who said they were there just taking a walk to see the scenery. But Ferris couldn't believe it, because she saw them carrying the hero's sword she had found yesterday. Finally, the Sui siblings admit that they have followed Ryner and Ferris since the beginning because their goal is the same, finding the treasure left by the hero. They also said that Ryner was stupid for throwing away the hero's sword and couldn't control it. The Sui siblings deliberately killed all the residents there so they wouldn't tell about the whereabouts of the hero's sword. Then both of them fought. When they fight, the Sui siblings are shocked that Ryner is an Alpha Stigma user. But after that, they both wanted to take his eye. Sui siblings arrogantly showed Ryner how to use the hero's sword and attacked him. But it turns out that Ryner and Ferris have found treasures left by other heroes in the form of green, spiritual field crystals and Ali Chronoku's sickle, and Elamino's comb that functions to neutralize magic. Ferris and Ryner finally chose to retreat because they knew they would have difficulty dealing with the hero's sword. But Ryner's steps were stopped when the Sui siblings released a spiritual crystal which reacted to his eyes until he was in pain. The furious Ryner took out his Alpha Stigma until it couldn't be controlled. Even his power could make the Sui siblings' hands melt into ashes. The uncontrollable Ryner even attacked Ferris until she was seriously injured. But she didn't give up trying to resuscitate him because she realized that he wasn't a monster but her best friend. Then, Ferris' sincere cry was able to make him come to his senses. After Ryner woke up, he immediately regretted his actions and cried because he almost killed Ferris. She also sincerely hugged him and said that he was a good person. She believed he wouldn't kill her because he wasn't a monster. Her words made him cry because this was the first time he had heard Ferris this sincerely. After the incident ended, Ryner reported to Sion that they had fought the Sui siblings who stole their hero's treasure. They have the same mission as them, to collect treasures left by heroes. Knowing the report, Sion was worried that Ryner and Ferris would be in danger. Soon Claf came with the Queen of Astubal to Sion's chambers. She volunteered as a prisoner of war so the people of Astubal would obey the Roland Kingdom. Sion agreed, but he must continue to look after Queen Nao. Not long after, Miran came to Sion's room and informed him that there was another danger. There is information that the Gastark Kingdom is expanding its territory. They are known to be cruel and justify any means to seize a kingdom as their ally. He gave the advice to avoid attacks from the kingdom, because according to him, there will be anti-king nobles who will spy on the power of the Roland Kingdom. Miran suggested Sion massacre the nobles who had a high probability of betraying the Roland Kingdom. After that, Miran met one of the noblemen, the Duke. He firmly admitted that he hated the leadership of Sion. He also asked Miran to join him and become his confidant, but Miran refused and sided with Sion. Even though the noble offered a lot of money, it wasn't enough to buy his loyalty. In the evening, Claf escorts Queen Nao to the room where she will rest for a while. But when Claf leaves, suddenly, she is attacked by a mysterious group. They forcibly stripped her naked. Claf, who heard Queen Nao scream, immediately came back to her. But when he got there, he saw her, who had almost been raped. Furious, he immediately slaughtered the group of evil men. On the other hand, that night, Ferris and Ryner were walking in the middle of the forest in search of the hero's relics. On the way, they saw a little girl being tortured by men. Then they easily killed him. But the problem was not over because the little girl asked for their help to save her friend Arua, who was brought by the army. The little girl explained that if Arua's eyes changed, she had a strong power that could kill soldiers. She was arrested because she was considered a monster. Ferris guessed that Arua had Alpha Stigma's eyes. After hearing that, they were finally willing to save her. While in the Roland Kingdom, Miran reports what happened to the Queen of Astubal. Miran believed that the attack was caused by members of the nobility who intended to make Sion bad in the eyes of the people of Astubal because he was considered unable to protect his prisoners of war. Miran also suggested that Sion kill all the members of the nobility and said that he had planned something to kill them. Sion, who was already very annoyed with the nobles, allowed Miran to carry out his plan. Sion will make Miran a suspect in the attack on the Queen of Astubal so that the other nobles believe that Miran has betrayed him. The following day began the initial steps for the plan to massacre the nobles. Initially, Sion made a written order that from now on, the kingdom would employ the chosen people to work in his kingdom. This was done to provoke the anger of the nobles. Sure enough, the nobles were annoyed with Sion's decision to employ commoners in the kingdom. His subordinates also went to his room to express concern because this was very dangerous. After all, it could trigger the traitors to revolt to overthrow him. Sion understood their worries, but now he was only worried about the future of his kingdom. There is a threat from the Gastark Kingdom, which is expanding its territory and has succeeded in seizing several kingdoms on the Menorus continent, and even the Roland Kingdom could be attacked by them at any time. Sion forced his kingdom to prepare for it. He also told them that he would openly kill the nobles who would most likely betray the Roland Kingdom, where he will follow Miran's plan to trap the nobles and kill them all. Hearing this, Claf also expressed his objections. If Sion did this, then he would be no different from the previous fairly ruthless king. But he can't do anything when he hears the reason Sion did this, to save the kingdom from being destroyed so the people can live happily. Meanwhile, Ferris and Ryner were scouting the Runa Kingdom on the territory's border. It turns out that Arwa was kidnapped by a group of powerful wizard knights called Runan. Ryner saw her being carried and tied up inhumanly. They even kidnapped her parents, and her mother was tortured and killed in front of her, and it aims to awaken the Alpha Stigma in her eyes. At first, Ryner couldn't bear to want to immediately help her, but Ferris held him to be patient, because to save Arwa, they had to come up with a plan. Then the magic knights tortured Arwa, torturing her father and threatening to kill him. That's where Ryner could not see their cruelty. He immediately arrived and was already not caring how strong and how many enemies he had. Ryner, who relied solely on his emotions, was almost killed. Luckily Ferris protected him. It turned out that the knight army was huge. He told Arwa's father to take her away from there. But instead, Arwa's father was slaughtered by them in front of Arwa. Immediately she couldn't contain her anger until her Alpha Stigma eyes rose. Ryner knew of the danger if Arwa raised her Alpha Stigma, immediately acted and calmed her anger. Then they immediately fled with her. Luckily, they escaped the pursuit of the knights. After they rested and spent the night in the forest that morning, Ferris found a horse-drawn carriage to continue her journey. Meanwhile, in the Roland Kingdom, it looks like the nobles are gathering at the Froyud noble family's place. It seems that Miran is also there. Miran's father is one of the nobles who is an anti-king faction and invites all national alliances that hate Sion. It was then that he provoked all the nobles to overthrow Sion. They allied themselves with the Runa Kingdom to overthrow him. All the nobles there agreed and were very excited. Finally, Miran was told to convey his father's plan, but unexpectedly, Miran only said, "Please kill and slaughter everyone there, including his father." Surprisingly, there is one noble left, the Duke. Here it is finally revealed that the battle of Miran and the Duke made all the opponents of Sion gather here. Miran promises the Duke's safety if he wants to join his game. But unexpectedly, the Duke got attacked and died at the hands of a man who used the shadow ring technique. He said his purpose in coming there was to snatch a ring from Miran until the two ended up fighting. Miran tried to draw magical power from the man to find out where he came from, but he only used the shadow element system and released a blue fire crystal to kill Miran. Miran was surrounded by the fire and couldn't go anywhere. He felt that he would die in this place. Luckily, Claff came to save him, then they ran out of the building. After that, Claff asked what really happened, but Miran did not know anything about it, and he also did not know the man's figure. Then he thanked Claff for saving his life. It turns out that Claff was sent by Sion to protect him. Unexpectedly, the man made another move. He heads to the palace to kill Sion with magic that turns him into an animal. But Lucille came and blocked him. Unfortunately, he could still escape and realized that so many strong people surrounded Sion, so his mission to kill Sion failed. Meanwhile, the Sui siblings have massacred the entire army in the Runa Kingdom. Their purpose in doing so is to invite the King of Runa to become an ally of the Gastark Kingdom to destroy the Roland Kingdom. In addition, they also asked the king to hand over Arwa, who had the Alpha Stigma, to them. On the other hand, Ferris and Ryner are being chased by Runan's troops, who want Arwa. They also ran as fast as possible to take her to a safer place so that she would not be hunted by others again. On the other hand, it looks like Kiefer is in Estolia. She wanted to head back to the Roland Kingdom. The moral that can be learned from this anime is that sometimes, when we want to maintain the peace of a group, we are unconsciously willing to kill another group. So being fair is not easy because we will be heavy on one side.